Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, here with some thoughts on the upcoming fight between Saul Canelo Alvarez and the killer, Kermit Cintron. But before I go further, just remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, let's briefly talk about the difference between technique and talent, right? You've heard me talk about technicians, people like Bernard Hopkins, who just technically know how to deconstruct an opponent, right? Technique, as I see it, is how you hold your hands, right? It's what a trainer can tell you to do. So if you're with a Freddie Roach or a Buddy McGirt, they can say to you, hold your hands up, right? Stand this way. Set it up so that the other guy's going to have a hard time getting past the angles you set up, right? It's tucking your head inside your shoulder, right? It's, dodging down in such a way at such an angle that your opponent can't hit you flush with certain punches. It's knowing how to clinch, right? Knowing the technique to come inside, especially when you're hurt, and holding on to the other opponent, right? Technique is something that can be taught. In my opinion, talent is not. Some fighters are just more talented than others. And by talent, I'm not talking about, your position when you throw a punch. I'm talking about hand speed, right? I'm talking about punching power. It's amazing how some fighters can look like they're throwing average punches, but yet their opponents just wilt, right? Edwin Valero, before his death, you saw him hit guys with punches where it didn't even look like he had great leverage, but yet guys completely, fell out, got knocked out, right? Freddie Roach can show you how to position your hands, etc., but he can't give you Manny Pacquiao's hand speed, right? He can show you spots in the ring where you want to set up your feet, right? You want to have your foot outside of a southpaw, etc. But he can't give you the foot speed of someone like a Manny Pacquiao, right? He can show you how, you can roll under certain punches that an opponent throws, but he can't give you the sense of balance to bend at the waist like a James Toney does or like a Pernell Whitaker does, right? And, timing, he can show you the technique, but certain fighters just have the natural timing that makes them great counterpunchers, right? Floyd Mayweather, great athlete, great technician, but also great timing. In other words, Floyd Mayweather can do pull counters. He can, he has you deconstructed. He, in the blink of an eye, can counter you when you're most vulnerable right after you've missed a punch and you're extended, right? That's talent. Now, what I'm going to say is probably going to be controversial to many people, but understand that Saul Alvarez, who fights technically, in my opinion, like Vladimir Klitschko. In other words, he has a great, and it is a great, one of the best punches in any division in boxing. We talk about pound-for-pound fighters. Let's talk about pound-for-pound punches, right? Saul Alvarez's left hook is among the very best punches in boxing, right? Just like the left hook Vladimir Klitschko threw that took out Eddie Chambers, right? He has a concussive left hook. He hides behind a jab, just like Vladimir Klitschko does, And he has a pretty blistering, pretty lethal straight right hand, just like Vladimir Klitschko does, right? But understand, with Vladimir Klitschko, in the heavyweight division, Klitschko's style, which allows him to fight long, in other words, you have to get through that jab to even get to Vladimir Klitschko. That style works better at heavyweight than at junior middleweight, simply because there are greater size disparities at heavyweight, right? Klitschko, in his next fight, is going to be something like 6 inches taller than Mormek, his opponent, right? At heavyweight, everything above 200 is heavyweight. So Klitschko is going to be several inches taller than many of his opponents, right? And so this, his fight style, that we'll call it an Emmanuel Stewart fight style, and that's really the fight style, quite frankly, that Canelo has, right? His fight style is really made for situations where the fighter already has a physical advantage, right? The fight style accentuates Vladimir Klitschko's height. Many of the guys he's fighting aren't his height. So Eddie Chambers, for example, they're having a hard time getting by the jab, just the jab alone. Then, of course, as they try to bum rush and get past the jab, they're dealing with length because they have to punch up to hit Vladimir Klitschko. Now, Saul Alvarez doesn't have that height advantage at 154 pounds, right? Saul Alvarez, quite frankly, is using a Klitschko style in a division where some of his opponents are much more agile and much more mobile than the typical heavyweights that Vladimir Klitschko fights. Let me also make a point. While Saul Alvarez is technically solid, just like Vladimir Klitschko, right? I would argue, after looking at many Saul Alvarez's tapes, that Saul Alvarez does not have the talent, the natural talent, that his next opponent, the very eccentric Kermit Cintron, has. Kermit Cintron has more hand speed than Saul Alvarez. Cintron is a natural athlete with a movable center of gravity. Saul Alvarez is very stiff, just like Vladimir Klitschko is stiff. You don't really notice how stiff Vladimir Klitschko is because it's the heavyweight division, right? But at 154, Saul Alvarez is stiff. He doesn't bend at the waist. He's not James Toney, right? He doesn't bend at the waist. He doesn't have a bounce, right? Nor is he particularly fast afoot, right? He's really more of a technician than he is an athlete. And in his toolbox, you have 2 A-plus punches. The left hook is an A-plus punch. His straight right hand is awfully close to an A-plus punch. He's a slugger masquerading as a boxer. But the key is he's not the athlete that Kermit Cintron is. Now, let's talk about Kermit Cintron for a second. Some people just have a body language that doesn't convey to onlookers a lot of confidence, right? You've heard the phrase bad body language, right? Kermit Cintron has been underrated his entire career. This is a guy who was a 3-1 underdog to Alfredo Angulo. And let's remember, Angulo was unbeaten when he fought Cintron. Cintron beat him by several rounds, right? Cintron who started his career as a knockout puncher, has actually been on his back foot in some fights and has shown a lot of boxing ability, right? He was on his back foot against Alfredo Angulo, right? Cintron strikes me as everything Canelo is not. Cintron's actually an athlete. When I saw the Cintron-Paul Williams fight, and I encourage everyone to look at those rounds, I thought Cintron was beating Paul Williams. Cintron's in front of Paul Williams, a high-volume, tall guy, and I thought he was outboxing Paul Williams. Understand, too, I had Sergio Martinez beating Kermit Cintron. I thought Martinez actually stopped Cintron. Cintron gets hit, he goes down. Cintron claimed that it was not a punch. The replay showed that it was a punch. Cintron seemed disoriented and didn't know what hit him. The bottom line, though, is that, think about it, Cintron fought Martinez and got a draw, right? Cintron got up, he boxed well enough against Sergio Martinez to get a draw. Now, he did get beaten twice by Antonio Margarito, but understand, Margarito is an entirely different style than Saul Alvarez. Margarito is a stalker. When you're fighting Antonio Margarito, it's going to be high volume, and he's going to find you in the ring, right? It's a Joe Louis, he can run but he can't hide type deal. That's not Saul Alvarez. Saul Alvarez is not going to hunt Kermit Cintron down. Let me go further. Cintron, and I understand, Cintron also lost to Carlos Molina. But let's think it through. I got a lot of emails, in fact, I still get a lot of emails, from the Erislandy Lara crowd, right? Everyone who saw that Paul Williams fight seemed to feel that Lara methodically beat Paul Williams, right? Certainly the people on HBO believe that Lara beat Paul Williams, right? Lara is widely viewed as one of the best guys at 154, right? Understand that Carlos Molina fought Erislandy Lara to a draw. If you see the fight, you might even think that Molina won that fight. Is it possible, YouTube Nation, that Carlos Molina, who beat Kermit Cintron, is actually, like Cintron, a much better fighter than people realize? Right? I mean, think about it now, because we talk about big names, just like Cintron got a draw with Sergio Martinez. Molina, who beat Cintron after Cintron was out of the ring more than a year, right? Cintron wasn't primed for that fight. After he was out of the ring for more than a year, Molina comes in, beats him, and immediately the boxing public writes off Kermit Cintron. I'm running out of time here. Suffice it to say, I believe Cintron moves better than Canelo. I believe Cintron has more advanced boxing skills than Canelo. I think Cintron throws the better jab than Canelo. I think Cintron will be able to time Canelo. Understand, too, Cintron, who used to have Emmanuel Stewart as a trainer, currently has Ronnie Shields as a trainer. Understand, Cintron is being trained by some of the best trainers in the sport. This fight, in my opinion, has upset written all over it, right? Cintron, I don't believe he's depressed. I don't believe he has mental health problems. What I believe is he's eccentric with bad body language, and it turns fans off and has him chronically undervalued. Take a look at the people Cintron has fought and has beaten, right? Take a look at his hand speed. Take a look at his length. And tell me why he can't win this fight. The bet I'm recommending is Cintron to win the fight, straddled against Canelo by KO. Canelo, a puncher, always has a puncher's chance. I think Cintron is a live underdog in this one. And looks like it's going to let me go past 15 minutes. Let me continue talking just for a minute. Let me just say this, too, about Kermit Cintron, right? If he moves and fights the fight that he fought against Love Morendu, what's Canelo going to be able to do, right? Compare and contrast the people who Kermit Cintron has fought to the people who Canelo has fought. I would argue that the best person that Canelo has fought is the current lightweight champion, Miguel Vasquez. And let me just say, I personally believe that if those two fought today, right, if you could find a way somehow to equalize the weight, right, because Vasquez rules the roost at 135. I think Vasquez, quite frankly, is better than more hype fighters like Brandon Rios. You know, I believe Vasquez would win because, in my opinion, Vasquez has the harder style to figure out. I believe Vasquez fought Canelo in one of his very first fights, then fought Canelo in the rematch, never got stopped, right? Other than Vasquez, Canelo has been having a career that's the opposite of Victor Ortiz's, right? Victor Ortiz fought Maidana, fought Berto, fought Floyd Mayweather. You could say a lot about Victor Ortiz, but you have to concede that Ortiz has fought A-level guys, right? Take a look at who Canelo has fought. Ryan Rhodes? Is that really A-level? You know, Matthew Hatton? Isn't that the wrong Hatton? You know, Canelo's been protected. I believe here they're throwing him into the deeper part of the pool. And I think they're making a mistake because a dedicated Kermit Cintron, in my opinion, actually has more talent than Canelo. There are also stories online. I would encourage everyone to look online about Canelo's sparring session with Gennady Golovkin, who's kind of a urban legend at 160 pounds. And all I'm saying is Canelo doesn't move well enough to move away from Kermit Cintron, right? Canelo doesn't move well enough, in my opinion, to track down Kermit Cintron. He doesn't have the length to fight a Vladimir Klitschko fight against Kermit Cintron. Also, as you look at Cintron's record, and I've talked about Canelo's punching power with his left hand and the fact that he's a KO artist, take a look in Cintron's KO percentage. It might surprise you. Let me just close by saying, too, I know many people, certainly the people on my channel page, vividly remember Cintron flying out of the ring against Paul Williams and Cintron staying down against Paul Williams. I'm not here to say that that was the best move by Cintron, right? But before you write off Cintron, let's remember the career that Bernard Hopkins has put together since falling out of the ring mysteriously against Robert Allen, right? All I'm saying is boxing has a lot of shenanigans and things like that. The bottom line is Kermit Cintron has taken on all comers, right? Angulo, when he was unbeaten. Antonio Margarito, when he was Antonio Margarito, right? Carlos Molina. Cintron has taken on all comers. Paul Williams, I believe in terms of the level of their experience, Kermit Cintron has the advantage. I think he's a live dog in this fight. I think he's definitely worth a look. I would, of course, straddle everything against Canelo by KO. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here on YouTube. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for watching.